We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns.
Good morning, everyone. It's Andrew and Austin. Welcome to Stock Talk. It's been a little while. It's good to see everyone, catch up with everyone midsummer. I know, Austin, you've been away in Nashville. You had the Calgary Stampede, and myself, although not for quite as fun a reason, was off in Ireland. We've got a little bit to catch up on, but overall, how are you doing, Austin?
Doing great, yeah. Like you said, we've both put a lot of miles on the travel clock over the last month and a half or so, but it's been all good. Everything's been sorted out, and happy to kind of be back in the swing of things. So I'll put this out there for anyone who's thinking about going on a trip to Nashville. I can highly recommend that city. It is a awesome time.
Excellent, and we're not sponsored by Nashville either, so that's good to
not yet, no.
Well, good, and of course Ireland is beautiful. If you have a chance, it's a beautiful place. But we want to kind of talk today just about more semi-serious news. You know, it's a lot of stuff in the news with China doubling down on its dominance in the mineral resource sector with some export restrictions, and this is centering around the semiconductor kind of dispute or feud that's going on between the U.S. and China.
Yeah, it is for sure, and you notice that kind of discourse is starting to pop up in all sorts of circles. You know, I was listening to a little bit of Ron DeSantis on his CNN interview the other day, and he was talking about China and the need to kind of position the U.S. to battle against China. You're seeing, obviously, we've talked about it ad nauseum before, but China really has a stranglehold on the global supply of minerals that are used for a large variety of industries, but in particular semiconductors, solar panels, missile systems, electric vehicle batteries, and stuff like that. So it's certainly a poignant topic, and clearly evidenced by that. Lots of articles and stuff kind of floating around on it.
Yeah, and like you said, we've spoken to death about just the supply of global minerals they have, whether it's 60% of aluminum, polysilicons, the rare earth market is dominated by China. 80% or so of, or sorry, 2/3 of cobalt and lithium are processed in China. And whether or not you like the green kind of energy shift or whatnot, you need all of these components for all the tech industry as well. And I think people have let it go for too long to let somewhere else have a tight stranglehold over all the components to make the things that are desperately needed.
Yeah, and that's kind of the big feature of it. And one thing that I thought was really interesting is we kind of dove into this Wall Street Journal article is the significance of gallium and germanium, especially when it comes to defense applications. And, all these major companies, Raytheon, Northrop, Lockheed Martin, all requiring this sort of very critical supply. And the gallium in particular, germanium, a little bit easier to source, especially in Canada and the US, but China really clamping down on that gallium supply. And it was something I mentioned earlier with talking about Ron DeSantis on his interview. And there's stuff that I think is good qualities about him as a presidential candidate. There's stuff that I think it probably weakens him as a presidential candidate. But one thing he was really hitting hard on was saying, the war in Ukraine has depleted the U.S. stockpiles of their munitions in particular. Yeah. And if they can't access these resources, they're going to be depleted. And God forbid if a situation ever came to it where there's an actual conflict in the South China Sea and Taiwan, the U.S. might be a little bit undersupplied at the moment because they've been supplying so much weapons and cash to Ukraine. So it could be, obviously in the current climate, something to pay massive attention to, not just on a sort of resource side of things, but on an actual national defense aspect as well.
Yeah, don't get me started, because it almost seems purposeful destruction of their armed forces and their stability or control over the world, and has caused a great deal of chaos because of that. The amount of waste that is being thrown at Ukraine, and this has nothing to do with whether someone is on Ukraine's side or not, or has nothing to do with Russia. It just has to do with the amount of money that's poured in and out of there, and the amount of arms that the U.S. has essentially sent over to be destroyed, has put them in an incredibly weak position. And for to me, it's baffling. I don't understand how you could put yourself in the position they have. But listen, I mean, at the end of the day, people, what we need is a change in a pathway or change in direction entirely. Yeah. Because all this virtue signaling from we don't want to mine, we don't want energy, we don't want this, we don't want that. We need people that have common sense, have expertise, and will say, listen, if we're going to do less fossil fuels, then we need to have a firm position on materials and minerals and metals that we need to make this change. Otherwise, you're just handing over the reins of power to other countries.
Yeah, and that's something that China's done very, like, from a strategic standpoint. It's been an excellent kind of move by them to clamp down on these restrictions, to kind of tighten their control. And it symbolizes what I think a very differing sort of, at least publicly differing strategies. China's saying, hey, we are going to solidify our supply. We're going to solidify our position. And the U.S. And NATO allies seem to be more concerned with this, like you're saying, virtue signaling and sort of just looking like they're being the good guys. But at some point, you have to say, look, if we're going to in any way be able to combat Chinese dominance, we have to be able to diversify what we are doing. When that comes to supply chains, that comes to different defense components, but also to the public narrative around it needs to be changed. It needs to be almost hit the factory reset button and say, look, guys, strip it down to basics. This is the way we have to move forward.
And hopefully that does come, because there's obviously we can see the social issues that are degenerating society as well. And sorry, when you were speaking about the germanium and the gallium, those are also used in semiconductors as well as in fiber optics as well. So we just did a video with Hive, which is going to be coming out. Maybe you've seen the promos out there. Hive blockchain and Hive technologies. This kind of all rolls together as one. You can see the intricacies of a lot of these. And these aren't rare earth metals, but these are fairly rare metals from the earth. How critical it is to have a control over these. And, once again, without getting, kind of people sick of me saying it, Canada has a major role that it could play if people would allow it. And one of the things I want to mention quickly is there is a private company called Cobalt that's invested by Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. And they're raising like $190 million. And they're focused on mining. They're private, though. And they're looking for things like nickel and whatnot. And they're looking in places like Canada. So it's interesting to see that there are people putting money towards these. They're just not doing it in the public markets. And they're doing it in Canada as well. So, I mean, there is a lot to be said for Canada. We just need to bring awareness to the opportunity there and to let people know that they can make a lot of money in this space.
Yeah, and Canada has a refinery that produces germanium from zinc concentrates, which can be primarily mined in Alaska and Tennessee, amongst other places. I believe there's some regions in Quebec that are quite heavy concentrates of zinc. So that can ensure a steady supply. Again, like you're saying, if you just lean into that and you just say, hey, look, I mean, we've been drumming this point for years, quite literally. But if you can just step up and say, hey, we're a resource country, let's put this on our shoulders, let's rise up and meet this challenge. There's a way to get it done. And I think it all ties back to in the West, but in Canada and the United States in particular, new voice, new leadership, new outline of that path forward is going to be, in my opinion, the only way that this kind of gets done and gets the ball rolling in the right direction.
And it goes without saying, I mean, we don't want to make light of how delicate these types of discussions are between the U.S. and China. These are the two biggest superpowers, and it's easy to armchair quarterback how difficult that is. But I'm of the side that on the West we should be quite ardent and disciplined with how we move forward. And I'll give the Biden crew props for that. I think we can't. You have to pick your battles, and I think if they really get behind mining, which they've kind of to some degree, there's a good chance for us to restore some strength and at least hedge between fossil fuels, which are still needed and they're going to be required for the unknown foreseeable future, whether you like it or not, but also that backup of having access to all materials as we build out the technology, the stations, the grid, and all that, to be able to even hold, to even entertain any advancements in solar power, efficiency and whatnot, we need to get a larger plan kind of moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of perfect synopsis to sort of end it on there, just with that point. And I'll refer people over. We've got great content kind of expanding on this a bit more. We had a piece on our website yesterday about the U.S. Oil reserves and how they've been depleted throughout this whole crisis as well, and how the path forward on that might look. So I encourage people to head over there and sign up. Also, if you haven't gotten a chance to take a look at our quarterly newsletter that came out a few weeks ago, make sure you're signed up to the website to get that. Send me an email directly. I'll send you over a link to it, make it super easy for you. But lots of great nuggets in there for people to sort of look at different companies in different sectors that they might not have taken a look at before. So any closing thoughts from you here, Andrew?
Nope, that's excellent. I'll just throw in as a little kernel at or nugget, an interesting member to the board of BlackRock from Saudi Aramco, which we were mentioning oil and gas. I'll leave it at that because that's a whole other video onto its own. Because not only is Saudi Aramco the largest oil and gas producer, it also is a critical player with a vanadium redox battery, and they do invest in a lot of this change or renewables as well. So an interesting addition. There's been a lot of talk that maybe Larry Fink over at BlackRock is stepping back from his ESG push and promotion. That would be wonderful if he did. We'll see. But tune in, take a look at some of the pieces we've got for subscribers, and we look forward to catching up with you real soon.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of the week. Andrew, we'll chat to you soon.
Bye-bye.